Oh, hello. Hello. I've had to change. Laptop decided to break again, so I'm with you on my phone. I'm just going to hang on for a few minutes so that I can see who is out there. Not that I mind just talking about deaf dogs to myself as well. So, been really enjoying some of the earlier talks when I managed to squeeze it in between trying to sort out my laptop. If anyone's there. Hello. Okay, I can see a couple of you. I'll just hang on for a minute or two, just in case any more are going to jump in on the live. Tried to be prompt. Hello, hello. Okay, I think we'll just start with a very quick bit about me. I'm not really keen on talking about me so much, but I'm Karen Lawe, and I am one of the co-founders of the Deaf Dog Network, which we launched about 10 years ago so that we could help deaf dogs and their carers wherever they were. I decided to specialise in deaf dogs because I realised through fostering, through lots of rescues, that deaf dogs often got left behind. If it came down to a choice between a dog that was perfect for your family and deaf and a dog that was perfect for your family and not deaf, people were taking the dog with hearing over the dog that was deaf because people were concerned. They would worry that the dog didn't have a good life ahead of it, would always be limited. How would they communicate with it? There were lots and lots of myths about deaf dogs. Oh, they bite easier, they startle and bite easier, you can't have them with children, they can never go off lead, and all these things really are myths. A little bit perhaps about why dogs become deaf or are born deaf. So deafness can be inherited or acquired through trauma or infection, and if the loss of hearing is due to cochlear hair cell or nerve neurons being absent or perhaps damaged, then this is referred to as sensorineural damage. Whereas if it's a blockage and it's actually the transmission of sound through the outer ear to the middle ear, then that's conductive deafness. A lot of people think that any white dogs are either deaf or carry the genetics for deafness, but that really isn't so, because it's actually to do with colour pigment and the lack of it. So breeds, we have about 80 breeds in the United Kingdom Kennel Club that are recognised that can carry the genetics for deafness. Ooh, Great Danes, Jack Russells, Collies, Dachshunds, Boxers, and some Spaniels, just to give you a few examples. But it's all to do with coat colour. If that breed or type of dog carries splodges, patches, flecks, freckles, speckles, spots, they're more prone to carrying the genetics that can affect their hearing. And then on top of that, you've got in the Collies, the Great Danes and the Dachshunds, for example, we've got Merles and Dapples, which again are more prone to suffering with deafness from birth, and those ones with the Merle and Dapple in are more likely to also have some vision issues to go with it. People are quite surprised as well when we come across dogs such as Black Labradors or Dobermans and Rottweilers that appear to have been born deaf. The association to that is more about the flashy white bit that does occasionally prop up in those breeds, and that's another reason, for example, why it comes up in boxers. Many decades ago, boxers were very popular and white became a very popular colour, and many generations have come down from this one dog that do carry a lot of those genetics. But in saying that, only about 13% of white boxers are actually deaf from birth or lose their hearing very soon after. So other than the genetic reasons for a dog inheriting the deafness, it can come on through injury. Head trauma, for example, could interfere with the small hairs in your dog's ears and knock things around, or just affect that part of the brain that receives the sound. Infection. Some dogs just get referring ear infections time after time after time, and that again can damage the inside of the dog's ear and severely affect its hearing. And for some dogs that's so bad they're better off having all that taken out and going through a TECA operation, which is perhaps, it's not something that I know a great deal of, but so many dogs after having it and suffering for those years just completely change into happy dogs because they don't have that bother anymore. There's no more popping off to the vet regularly and having your very sore ears looked into. So I started the Deaf Dog Network because of that unfairness, because people didn't seem to really understand why dogs were deaf and what they were capable of. One of the first things that people tend to ask us when they join the Deaf Dog Network group is how can I communicate with my deaf dog? What's going to happen? Will it ever get off lead? How can I train it? And my answer to that is always, don't panic. The dog you have, be that a puppy or an older dog, is the dog first. Just a dog. It's going to learn just like any other dog. The thought processes, the learning capabilities, it's a dog. Secondly, you have the type or breed of dog it is that come along with those breed traits that we see anyway. So again, nothing bad to worry about. And lastly, you have a dog that happens to be deaf. And if it's been deaf since birth, it doesn't know any different. Some dogs who lose their hearing suddenly do find it quite traumatic, but again, we're able to help them through that by communicating as they do with signs and body language. People seem surprised when I go to demos and I've got all the crew there with their individual deaf dogs. They're surprised when we can ask a dog for a sit or a wait or a watch me. Wow, dogs know sign language. It's quite often what you would get from the public. But if you know anything about dogs at all, that's how they communicate. How a dog's head is, how ear carriage, the tail carriage, whether that tail is wagging or not, how it's wagging, tension in the jaw, around the eyes. Every single bit of the dog talks to us and to other dogs all the time. And part of being a good dog guardian is learning to understand what your dog has got to say, whether it's hearing or deaf. Hello to people I've not been saying hello to. I'm a bit nervous just trying to get through, but thank you for saying hello. So I know you're there. It's much appreciated. So you've got yourself a deaf dog. Next question is, how often and where do we start with the training? Which signs come first? Well, to me, if you've got a puppy, you're training all the way through that. Anytime that puppy is up and awake, that should just come naturally. When you're going to take it to the toilet, you're going to let it know its boundaries, you're going to interact with it, you're going to play games, you're going to cuddle. All those things, just do as you normally would. Absolutely. And if it's an older dog, but the dog has been deaf all of its life, again, it's not going to know any different. It may be a little withdrawn if no one's actually tried to make any communication with it during its lifetime, but hey, that gives you a foot in the door to start off a brand new way of life for you and your dog. You can speak to many guardians of deaf dogs and they're going to tell you there's nothing like that relationship you gain with your deaf dog. Some of them, I had one myself, even get to lip reading, and he showed me how tiny bits of body language we give off give a dog a cue. I demonstrated earlier that sign for sit. What I didn't realise is that when I say sit, my eyebrows raise just a little bit, and Gollum, my boxer, then eventually would sit if I just raised my eyebrows at him. That's how much they take notice of body language, and not just each other's, ours. Even a deaf person will tell you it's all well and good signing to them and having lip reading, but they need to see your facial expressions. They need to see your body language as well to get the whole picture of what it is that you are communicating. So with deaf dogs, which sign should come first? It's got to be you're doing so well. Most of us do. Thumbs up, good boy, well done, I'm so happy with you. Some people use okay. Doesn't matter, because the great thing about dog sign language is there's nothing set in stone. You make up the signs that come easiest to you, and that you and your family or your friends that have anything to do with the dog's care and communication, that you can all get on with. One of the things I suggest to people who are new to owning a deaf dog is that they make little videos of themselves talking about a topic they're passionate about for maybe 30 seconds, and then watching it back and seeing how their body language is already showing them signs and ways of communication that you can transfer into signs with your new dog. Training a sign like this for a sit, how easy is that? Is it really? You know, how do we train a sit? We're no longer are we pulling up on a dog's neck and pushing a bottom down. We don't do that anymore. We get something in our hands, maybe a little bit of food that the dog likes, and we put that on the dog's nose. We carefully lift it upwards and backwards. The nose follows, the bottom drops. We release the treat into the dog's mouth. Good sit. That's where that sign comes from. But you might want to deliver your treat that way. So that might become your sit sign. Either way, modern dog training is already teaching us how to communicate with our dogs with signs, whether they are hearing or not. So, and the other thing, of course, about recording each other talking passionately about a subject you like is if it is a family or a group of friends, you can have a laugh at each other as well. So there you go. You go, oh, I never knew I did that. But you do. We give off stuff all the time. Okay, so the good marker. How will the dog know that this means you've got it right? We can tune it in. And if any of you are familiar with clicker training and how to tune in a marker, much the same. Have some nice time with the dog, thumb up, treat, thumb up, treat. And if your dog's not treat orientated, then little farce or a low level interactive game that the dog likes to play with you, those kind of things, they're all rewards. You have to find out what it is your dog, your puppy, finds rewarding. A lot of them are food, but that can be different for different things you're teaching and in different areas, so be prepared for that in advance as well. So we've got our little sit sign, got our good sign, we've tuned it in. You can also just randomly use it as the new dog or puppy does good stuff, behaviours we want to see more of. Yes, thank you for doing that. Fantastic work. Use every feeling you've got to convey to that animal, that dog, I am so pleased with you. Okay, so we've tuned in a good. A lot of people think that the next sign should be no. And go back 8-10 years, I too used no. Absolutely, I did. But moving forward with modern science and understanding more about how dogs learn, no. What does it mean? No. No, you're breathing. No, your ear moved. No, you licked my plate. No, you lifted that foot. There's so much going on. At that moment we say no. It cannot mean anything specific to the dog. Much rather, knowing you've got a new canine addition coming to your home, is to set your dog up for success. Don't set it up for failure. Oh yes, Mark, the bum wiggle from boxers. Yes, Maddie loves that too. So when you've got your new addition and you've done the best you can to set it up so that it gets things right and not wrong, there are going to be times that you cannot keep your eye on the dog the whole time. So for those times, you need to make sure the dog is in a safe area, in a utility room, a crate, a puppy pen, somewhere where you don't have to worry what it might be getting up to. Okay, and if you're in a family, maybe it could be the turn of child A or child B or husband or wife or partner, for them to keep an eye on the new dog whilst you're getting on with what you're doing. Okay, really set yourself and your dogs up to be able to get it right, because then you are going to enjoy your dog so much more, and your dog is going to want to please you so much more. We release fantastic chemicals, as do dogs, when things go right, and dogs can smell them on us. We don't know by scent how a dog is feeling, but a dog has a pretty good idea how we're feeling just from scent. So when you're building up your dictionary of signs as well, so you know, we've got good, we've got sit, watch me has got to be the next one, because that is such a useful skill to have to help teach further down the line what we call a reliable check-in, and towards your recall as well. Teaching any dog to focus on your face, again, if it's food or toy orientated, I'm going to go with a food example for now, isn't as hard as you think. Randomly, again, in the day, just living with your dog, if it gives you eye contact, you can go, good, look, or watch me, whatever signal you want to use, okay? But if you really want to tune that in, get some of your dog's lovely food in one hand, get your lovely dog in front of you and just give it a few free treats. And then step back a bit, and in the dog's eye line, just carefully throw a treat one way to the floor. The dog's going to go, going to eat that treat, thanks very much. It's going to sniff around a bit in case there's another one. Then it's going to look to you. And initially when the dog looks to you, we just give it that, hey, well done sign. And while we've got its focus, we take a treat, we cast it gently to the other side where the dog can see it go, see where it lands. Dog goes, eats the treat, sniffs around a bit, looks back at you. Good. And so on. After about 8 or 9 repetitions, I would probably leave that game till a bit later on. And then I would start that game again right at the beginning with 3 treats, this way. But instead of doing this every time the dog got it right, I'm going to go, good, look. Good, thanks. That way. Eat the treat, sniff the ground, look at me. Good, look. Thank you very much. So there's plenty of other games you can also use to help create focus, and we have some of them in the file section of the Deaf Dog Network, and I'm sure many of you that are already dog training orientated, you know games for focus as well. There's lots of things, absolutely, so many, and games are fun. You feel less stressed, I guess, less under pressure when it's a game you're playing with your dog rather than training or serious training, and the dog will pick that up from you as well, and you'd be surprised how quickly a dog will want to respond to you with that game. So now we're building up on the look. We've got the good, we've got the sit. We're not doing no, because we're going to avoid situations where that might happen, because we're going to set clear boundaries. We're going to enable our dog to get it right. And all of this is about building a relationship in strength and trust and understanding between you and your dog. Let's get on to something else. Next one. I like to teach next either a fist bump or a hand touch. Again, it's a cue that once you've got your dog used to that sign, you can help it use it in so many other training situations. Most dogs, out of curiosity, if you place a hand quite near them, not suddenly, don't do it suddenly, don't sneak up on them. Just place your hand, out of curiosity, they are going to sniff it. Thumb up, reward from the other hand. Put that hand out again, dog's going to sniff it. Thumb up, reward from the other hand. Some dogs are not sure at first, so you may have to start in the hand you want the dog to target, having a treat, so that the dog gets used to sniffing, you do a thumb up but still reward from the other hand until the dog gets the hang of it's that we want you to touch, either the fist or the hand. I don't tend to train a sustained nose to palm touch because I want to use it later down the line for a dog to follow as much as come in and touch. So as long as they hold it for a couple of seconds, I'm very happy. But I say after a while, when they got used to it, good. The good is the release sign for my hand touch from a dog. I don't like to use good as a release sign for most things, you know, something like this, or all done, so a dog knows when I finish with it. I don't teach a stay anymore. If I teach a dog positions, then I train them to sit and remain in a sit until such time as I ask them to do something else or dismiss them or set them free. So I don't see any need for this stay business at all in my life. It might be something that you feel you need to teach, or you teach because you do competition work or something like that. Yes, deaf dogs can do competition obedience, just so you know, amongst many other things. So, watching me, sit, good, 3 of your signs, checking in. How can we teach a recall? Okay, how can I recall my deaf dog when he's all the way over there? First answer to that is don't let him be all the way over there, because you can't recall him. Same as a dog with hearing. If it's going through a phase where it's not listening, or it's just gaining its independence and just finding things a little bit more interesting than you, then we shouldn't be allowing them to run off lead in areas where there's going to be other dogs. So to train a recall with your dog, you can start at home, nice and easy. Anytime you want the dog, beckon it in, give it exciting body language, open hands. I've seen quite a lot of owners with deaf dogs. Their recall really starts off as a great big sort of windmill thing. Hello, dog, I'm over here. I've used that a couple of times for dogs that haven't responded to smaller signals, but really dogs are smart, as we pointed out earlier. You know, if they pick up on the smallest bit of body language, so even from a long way away, you don't necessarily have to be doing your windmill impersonation. For my little dog, his recall sign is that my arm goes up in the air and comes straight down with my palm facing out, and he comes in and nose targets my hand. So that's where the nose target can come in handy for recall. One of my other dogs comes to this, like that. And another one comes when I point at it and then point to me. So that's good, you know, because that's what I've trained them to do. But I didn't try and train them to do that while they were busy doing something else. As with a dog with hearing, initially, let's have the dog on a harness on a long line so that the dog can have some freedom. And anytime the dog randomly checks back with you, thank you, good, off you go, carry on, or good, come in, or good, wait. If your dog, when it's on a long line, kind of doesn't have any interest in you, you might be thinking, well, how can I teach it to check in with me? Then we tend to start with the long line being quite a bit shorter and you being more with the dog, and every 10 seconds or so, give it a piece of its favourite food. Favourite food has to be the best thing. When the dog starts looking round to you, just before your 10 seconds, reward the dog. If it doesn't look round in the next 15 seconds, go in, give the dog a treat for nothing a couple of times. Every 15 to 20 seconds, the dog will start looking back. Thumbs up, good check-in, have a sweet, well done, off you go. Eventually you build that up, and you build that up, as with anything, starting with least distraction and then building up the duration between the time the dog checks in but does still reliably check in. When you've got your dog reliably checking in on a 30-foot long line, regardless of what is going on all around it, then you can think about letting it off. Because on top of knowing to check in, they also have to know what not to go forward for. So while you're teaching your check-in training, once the dog has got the basic of looking back at you for direction, your next challenge is to set up environmental cues that mean check-in, triggers that mean check-in. My boxer is not very good with other dogs. We spent a lot of time retraining her through years 2 and 3, and her check-in response, as with my others, to seeing another dog is to stop. Another dog off lead means stop and look back at us. And then we will say whether you need to come back in, wait right there, or actually it's off you go. That dog is a friend. I have to say, my white fluffy collie type dog, Winky, he's more likely to take the decision to go and see dogs he knows well, rather than wait for direction every time. So he's on a little bit of a new learning curve there, so that we can just keep building that up a bit more, because otherwise he'll push and push and push, and I don't want him to do that. All 3 of my dogs know if they see a dog that is on lead, they stay at least 20 meters away from it. Maybe ask it a couple of times, do you want to play? Do you want to play? Oh no, you're on lead. And then they come away. So they're trained not to go in to a dog that is on lead. Sometimes they make a mistake, as I do, because some flexi leads you just can't see. So, you know, you think the dog's away from and free, and it isn't. But other than that, they do really good. Another thing about checking in to make a trigger in the environment, we walk in woodland. So if we come to a junction of pathways, the dogs know to check back for us to say what to do there, which is usually, you know, this way, that way, go ahead or wait or come back. We're going over here. You've gone too far. They get that. And that's not something you necessarily teach a dog every day in a set lesson. Those things are what you find will come naturally as you're out and about with your dog. Now, I think where I have been concentrating so much on talking, I may have missed some questions. So I'm going to do a little bit of a scroll back here, see if there's anything. Yes, Laura, your tiny hip twist or your stand cue. That reminds me of a lady I helped who had a German Shepherd who she was doing obedience with, and they've been doing really, really well. It was a dog with hearing, but she says, when I go leave him in a sit, I walk away. She said, I turn and face him. I do my recall sign, but he starts before my recall sign. So I just watched her a couple of times doing that with her dog, and the giveaway was her shoulders dropped a little just before she gave her recall sign. So the dog was taking that cue. So she just had to stay a bit more tense and just wave her arms in and out. So yeah, they do. They pick up on the tiniest of things. Absolutely they do. Yeah, videoing yourself. Do it anyway, so you can have a laugh next time you have a glass of wine. So, okay, we've gone with good, we've gone with sit, we've gone with checking in, we've gone with a hand touch, we've built up a little bit about check-in and recall. If you have any further questions on those, just throw them in there. Absolutely welcome to do so, or else I'm going to start waffling on about some other stuff. Okay. Another reason teaching a hand touch or a fist touch is good for your dog is because you can use it when you're trying to build up loose lead walking. Again, my suggestion is that you start somewhere where there are a little distraction, and preferably without lead. So in your own home, in your garden, you get that target in hand, your dog knows to pop his nose on it, you put it down by your side, get him to follow you along. Couple of steps, and build it up. And also thumbs up. Then, you know, you can eventually get rid of the hand altogether. With one of my dogs, when we're walking along in a heel position, I've constantly got my thumb out like that. That's his cue. He looks up at the thumb. he trots along. But if I turn it like that and do that, then he starts doing prancing. So that was something that we came across by accident and that he now quite likes to demonstrate. So yeah. So other things you can do with your hand touch, again, if you want to make that a more sustained touch to enable you to then check your dog's ears, eyes, feet, that kind of thing. It's really useful for that. And you can also transfer that into a chin rest, teaching the dog there by encouraging it to take a treat here with its chin on your hand. And then I use this sign together would mean I'm asking for a chin rest rather than just a nose touch or fist bump. Okay, so you can use lots of them in different ways. The other good thing about using a hand touch and your dog being used to that or following your hand is if you feel so inclined, you can teach your dog some really neat tricks from that, from simple spins and twists to rollovers. It's a magnificent tool to have in your training box there. Right. Okay, I'm going to move on to another sign that proves quite useful because, again, although you may well have set up your environment for your new canine edition with no hearing, there may well come times when they do manage to snaffle something that you, your partner, your kids have left lying around, you know, remote controls, books, anything like that at all. And what we don't want to have to do is to chase the dog around and be prizing that item from its mouth. So from day one, you can start teaching them about giving and taking from you really easily. Again, this time I'm going to go with a toy orientated example. You can have a lovely toy that you know your dog likes in each hand. Let's say they're both raggers. You get your dog involved with this hand, you get that quite going and the dog's giving a good old game. And then you slow down with that one. You start making this one more interesting. And as the dog releases item 1, thumb up, replace with just as interesting item 2. Again, play a little game for a minute, make that one less interesting, get this one more excited, thumb up as the dog lets go, play that game. So we're just using our good marker for now. Nothing more complicated than that. Play, release good, have something else, that's your reward, is the game. Keep the sessions short and sweet. When you start the next one, start a minute or two back from the level you finished the time before. And what you will find is that you can build that gap in time between the dog releasing to you his item and you interacting with the second item or giving him the item that you had. Once you know you've got that little bit of time in between those two occurrences, instead of just good, you can give your give sign. This is my give sign, under their chin, give. Actually, I don't say give, I say thank you, thank you. And 2 of my dogs lip read that as well. I can say thank you, and as I'm putting the hand out now, they would deposit whatever it was in my hand. So you can build that up quite easily. Some people like to use a sign that's a bit sharper, like in front of them, give like that, give to me. Once your dog's got the idea about giving to you, then you can start teaching when it's okay to take from you. And again, with a toy or maybe a treat, you can have that in a closed hand. The dog may or may not pester you to get at that. And while it's kind of mithering about it, you're not going to turn it off. It's not doing anything wrong. You're going to wait. And the moment that dog looks away, steps away, open the hand, have it. That's what my dogs know. Take it. Have it. Or if I'm giving a small treat, they'll know because I'll hold it like that. And as I come towards them, just move my thumb up and have the treat here. Okay, so they know that's okay to take. If I'm not showing them it's okay to take it, they're not taking it. Okay, I haven't seen any more questions popping up. Let me just... Yeah, Kelly Dean, the recall and checking instructions. To be honest, I've been saying for years, that this is something that should be done with dogs that have hearing, and I do know that in the last 5 or 10 years a lot more trainers have moved in that direction. Now, whether that's because of deaf dogs or whether it's just something that's come along in the training industry as things do it over time, either way, fantastic that all dogs are going to be taught to look back and take that responsibility on themselves to know to look back at you. As with everything, don't forget to make it something the dog can achieve. Don't set them up for failure, or yourself, because you'll just become frustrated as well. The dog will pick up on your frustrations, and that doesn't work well for any kind of training at all. Okay, I've got a few more minutes to be going on here, so let's talk a little bit about building a dictionary. If you're lucky enough to know in advance that your new canine companion is going to be deaf, like I say, all you guys in your family, you can do the videoing and that, but then you've all got to decide which signs for what. And initially, it's quite important to keep them as similar as possible. As the dog grows in its relationship with you guys and vice versa, they'll pick up on little idiosyncrasies that people use. You know, some dogs are okay if you sign with this hand or this hand. Other dogs, if they're used to a sign being with one hand and you do it with the other, they just kind of look at you like, oh, what's that you're telling me? Like it's something new. Yeah, and training all dogs to hand signals as well. It's great, because then you don't have to bellow after your dog at any point, and later in their life, if they start losing their hearing, you're not trying to teach them something brand new. It's already there. You'll already have the building blocks there, Una. So that is a really good thing to do for all dogs. I really do believe that all dogs could and perhaps should be trained the way we all do with our deaf dogs. Perhaps there would be even stronger training relationships out there. So, you know, so your dictionary, you're going to build that up. Now, initially, you might get yourself a bit confused. I find directing folk to make little post-it notes dotted around the house with just simple drawings of the signs that they are using really helps everybody to be singing off the same hymn sheet. Like I say, after a while, the dogs pick up on individual idiosyncrasies like raised eyebrows and the like, so you can do that. When building your dictionary, think about the dog you want to have in 3 years' time. Is it a dog you're going to take on camping holidays? Is it a dog that you want to do a dog sport with? Agility, scent work, hoopers. Yes, deaf dogs can do all those things. I remember a guy telling me about 25 years ago, oh, you could never have a deaf dog doing scent work. They're so focused on the scent, and they won't be thinking to look back at a handler. But that isn't so. It really isn't. And I took 2 of my dogs through the basic scent work with talking dogs, level 1, because we just do it for fun. We were never going to do competition or anything. And there's no difference between how my deaf dogs learn and how the dogs with hearing learn. In fact, mine don't get distracted by sound. So, you know, and I'm important to them. So they will check back with me frequently. One of them I got to work with 2 scents. So I could go and lay 1 scent, come back to the dog and tell him which one he was going to look for by the sign I gave him to send away. If I sent away like that, where is it? He knew he would be looking for his catnip scent, and that all he had to do was pause for a moment and tell me it was there, look back at me, pause, look back at me, pause. That was for catnip. I then trained him to another herb scent, basil, but for that one I wanted a strong indication, and instead of sending him off like that, I would be like that. And that told him which scent he was looking for and what the end result had to be. Okay. Yeah. Hand signals with blind dogs. Now, blind dogs, not really my thing. Although, yes, obviously, dogs with age can lose their signal. Sometimes, like you're saying there, Laura, they sense the hand in front of them. You know, dogs that have hearing or vision impairment, they make up so much with scent and vibration, all those kind of things. Okay, it's getting really near time for me to finish, and I don't want to overrun. I'd just like to say thank you very much for listening to me today. I've got to thank you to all the other speakers too. I'm really, really looking forward to seeing so many more over the weekend. Well done, Ruby. And anyone who may have helped her even a little bit, absolutely fantastic. So the thing about deaf dogs, different, not difficult. Sometimes you have to think a bit outside the box. But if you're into your dog training, you're into your dog, you're going to find that not so difficult. Okay. If you want to catch a little bit more or something along similar lines, I've got a live of my own running in the Deaf Dog Network group on the 21st of March at 7 p.m. London time. Thank you so much, everybody. Goodbye.